Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We're live, and today we've got an antagonistic episode. But for once, we're going to have it go politically the other way. We're going to see a little bit of knocking of Trump, a little bit of, but let's get into the topics. First topic of the day: Greece's insurrection turns into a peaceful protest, and it ain't so peaceful. So I guess we're not going to be totally devoid of the slant. The second topic of the day is how Microsoft has just announced that they have created an entirely new state of matter, and the phantasm around that is going to be crazy. Like we're entering a Black Mirror episode. And finally, as I had suggested, the last topic of the day is going to be how Trump proposes a new visa program, putting the U.S. residency up for sale. He's calling it the gold card rather than the traditional green card. And the program brings a few frustrations out of me, so I'll be eager to jump into that dialogue. But without further ado, let's bring in the Pickle Gallery. Joining us as always, we've got Ricky from Just Another Day TV and Silent Destroyer. Make sure you check them out.
What up?
And
what's up, everybody?
Joining me as always, my co-host, co-chair, good friend Will Hubert. How you doing today?
I'm happy to be here, man. I'm looking forward to the third topic.
And running the keys as always, Dougie Fresh. All right, so for those that don't know, Greece is
real quick, Alex. We don't have any updates on Damas.
No updates on. Oh, did you have some? You know what? It did come. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up.
The same thing too.
There was an update.
Yeah.
She lost her hearing. So for those of you that have been following the escapade over the last few episodes, Ms. Damas is the extremely large human that was denied service of a Lyft ride and was suing Lyft because she, being obesity being a protected class, she was discriminated against. Lyft and the law gave it the good old ha-ha that it deserved, and Ms. Damas is left walking like someone her size should be doing. So fortunately, justice prevails once again, and we'll see. Maybe she'll appeal because others, the round type, they feel this is an injustice.
If you're her, why not? I mean, she was handed this. She's going to take this and pocket it. And then maybe later on she can give it out to them.
I don't think so. I think the large people are going to be... You know what's funny? We will fit the square block through the circle hole, finding a victim in anything except fat people. And the cigarette industry is like going out of business. They're like, that's fine. We'll buy up all the food and we'll just kill you with a new addiction. And we're like, you know what? This one, we don't feel bad for the victims.
No.
Die.
And you mentioned square block and circle block, and funny enough, she's kind of at that shape where she could fit in both.
When you get so round, you become square.
Yeah.
Ugh. Not a protected class. God bless justice. All right, so diving into the first topic of the day, being a Greek, this one hits home. As on the Rethink Tank, we really don't talk about Greece much. And admittedly, as them being my people, I'll be the first to tell you, there's not much to talk about. Failing economy, barely hanging on. The European Union kind of just looks at it as like the cancer of the group. You're just like, you're holding us back. But also all of Europe's holding all of Europe back. So that's a whole diatribe for a different day. So what's going on in Greece? Well, protests are erupting all over. This is something that really isn't being advertised at all in the media. Really, if you catch on the trend, when France did this in the past, and when Canada did this in the past, and when China did this in the past, our media definitely refrains at its best from giving these types of instances the attention they call for, or what I would say rightfully deserve. This is a chaotic scene. Totally peaceful protest, our media would.
I've seen this one before.
This looks like Seattle. I think that's the Chaz zone. Totally peaceful. I can't believe an insurrection would turn into something so peaceful and beautiful.
Honestly, for a bit though, you totally could have put up like videos of like Seattle, and I would have been like, "Man, Greece is crazy right now."
That's the twist. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's Greece. That's Greece. And I'm sorry, that is one wild scene. Here's an even crazier one. This is the beauty of when we were talking about the onslaught of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. One of the things people talked about all the time was how this is the first time we're seeing like real war and conflict in real time. Like in the palm of your hand, you can't hide from the disaster and tragedy on the other side of the floating rock because it's accessible and instantaneous in the palms of our hands. Well, here's boots on the ground, like the you and I's perspective.
That cameraman with a gas mask is dedicated.
I mean, he definitely knew how to prepare for the day.
I mean,
Or was it planned?
So, let me ask. You would know. I didn't, like you said, media's not really highlighting this. I had no idea this is going on. You mentioned insurrection. Is there like an election or something?
No. First off, my language is a play on satire of our media.
Oh, okay.
So what turned out to be an actual just protest of the nation turned into something more insurrection-esque. But using the media's language, I'm reversing them, right? It started off as an insurrection, and look at how peaceful it ended, because that's how they look at it. But what's going on in Greece? So this marks a 2-year anniversary of the deadliest train crash in Greek history.
The hell happened?
Do you want to know how many victims died?
I was like, what happened 2 years ago that this is going on?
57 people died in the train crash in Greece.
There's a magic number thing.
There is a magic number. That's when we know the rethink tank's got their finger on the right spot. So there was a national outcry over this situation because the people are being gaslit by the government. So what happens is for 2 years, people are exclaiming for justice. We need recourse. And there's instances like this is a very personal trial, I want to say, but really a personal moment in Greek history for all of the people because it was so public. And so like one of the things I came across is there's audio from one of the passengers screaming about how they have very little oxygen in this scenario from the crash. And so again, you can understand how it makes that personal connection. And so people want recourse. And the government, you're seeing an economically desperate country to begin with. So it's not like us where we have a little bit more fruits that like I would look at America when they make a morally compromised decision and be like, it's even worse because you didn't have to.
Right.
Like this is a country where making a morally compromised decision is more likely, I guess, because they're in desperate situations, but they're willing to look the other way for the sake of financial benefit. And so instead of finding retribution from this scene, the government keeps gaslighting the people into being like, at this point, just let it go. It's over. And they're like, we're not letting it go. And this is kind of, in my opinion, akin to like the East Palestine thing.
Yeah.
Like when we find out that, you know, a whole generation of kids in the middle of Ohio can't reproduce or are having tumors develop or something, it's like, well, no, we don't sit by and let that go.
Yeah.
And so this is the rules for thee, not for me type scenario that we see more often than not, which is we're going to apply the law and we're surely going to apply the law to you peons. But when the law starts being in conflict with the people that matter to us, we might grease some palms and look the other way. And the people of Greece are not standing for it. So again, take heed, take notice. This is the exact moment all of the farmers in France fill up every truck and dump it at their capital. Did you know about that one? I mean, think about what Canada was trying to do about a trucker convoy that was actually stalemating and suffocating the country, compelling action. Oh, well, then we just made a criminal out of every person that tried to assist this movement.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we'll let BLM burn down a cupcake shop, or we'll let a Chaz zone be erected in the middle of Seattle. So there is look at what Hong Kong did. And
Oh yeah, that's even weirder.
there's people that will choose ignorance to the wake of people around us.
Yeah.
There is a grand awakening. The people are tired of being trampled on, and it should stand out to you if you are so entrenched and convicted in the belief that your media source, I'm on the blue team, and blue team's media, AP News and MSN and all the they are the most reliable, best truth. Or let's say you're a MAGA idiot, and you go, you know what? Everything Fox News is the gospel. It's the truth. And if it doesn't come from Joe Rogan, it doesn't mean nothing. If you subscribe to that reality,
yeah,
and you're not balancing it with the other narratives, then one, none of this exists to you. And yet you believe and have blind faith in them. Question that. But then even more so, because it doesn't exist to you, you fail to see the overwhelming power of the people. That's why they need you blindly fighting over the color of your skin, over what's dangling between your legs, who you share a private space with, and find euphoric fun. All of that moot, means nothing. But man, they got you fighting over that more than what? 57 people dying of a train and we let our big bad cronies get away with it? Or plane crashes every other week and we just, it's Elon Musk's fault. Why? Because I'm on the blue team and MSNBC said so, you jerk. Are you not educated? So that's the world we're living in.
Yeah, I guess like I can understand it from like our government's perspective. I can see the twist that the media is doing over there. I guess the question I have is, what kind of government does Egypt have? They democratic?
So first,
like,
I'm glad you didn't mean to, but there was a Freudian slip. You said Egypt instead of Greece. One thing I'd like to sprinkle in here, just because we brought up Egypt. I'm preparing for today's episode, and I'm doing some research on what's going on in Greece. Egypt just announced that they're partnering with Greece to develop like the biggest energy cable going through the Mediterranean from Egypt to Greece. And I'm like, wait, who's getting what? Right?
Yeah,
like they're really not clear on which way it's going.
And what's going back and forth. Because
again, I know I have like a juvenile perspective of Egypt, but also it's not too inaccurate. There isn't the highest infrastructure in Egypt. We could go talk to our colleague at work who's there almost every other month. I'm sure she would confer with the fact that there isn't much infrastructure. To my amaze, Egypt has so much excess energy that they want to sell it to Greece. And I'm like, what is this, solar power? I mean, all you have is sun and sand. No, minerals. Real energy, burning fuel.
I was going to say, yeah.
So you've got Egypt. So I didn't want to get too sidetracked, but you brought up Egypt, and I just thought that was a crazy development coming. It's like, Greece, I get it. Not a bad idea. Stop buying energy. You got bigger problems.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe get in the oil trade. That'll help your energy and your economy before you help the Egyptians over the... Anyway, neither here nor there. What kind of government do they have? Supposedly, it's a Democrat-type government, right? And that's most what you'll find in the European Union. But also, depending on how they do it, whether it's a president, a prime minister, or whatever, it's never as... Trust me, ours is not a pure system either, but it isn't a pure reflection of what we do.
Right. It's not exactly a democratic, but it's kind of like an appointed official.
Right. So, but it is Democrat. Again, it's a Democrat. It's a democracy.
Well, I guess
you vote for a president.
The main reason I answer is like, again, I'm looking at from the lens of our country, and I see how like this essentially the state media kind of runs itself. You know, the blue team, the red team. Is there something like that going on in Egypt, or is it kind of like more of like centrally focused that's causing all this gaslighting to where like all the citizens are like, all right, that's objectively not what's happening. We see it every day, but the media every day on the news is saying the same thing.
So the violent clashes occurred in Athens, where some protesters threw Molotov cocktails and stones at police, who then responded with tear gas and stun grenades.
All right.
Over 80 people were detained in Athens alone, and minor injuries were reported. The scale of the protests estimated over 325,000 participants nationwide, including 170,000 to 200,000 in Athens alone. This is being described as the largest mobilization in Greece in recent years. The unrest has put significant pressure on Prime Minister. Theirs is a Prime Minister, not a president, but on Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
You did your best.
Mitsotakis.
Mitsubishi.
My papa would be like, why did you forget to say that, right?
Prime Minister Mitsubishi. Right.
So Mitsubishi. Karaoke Mitsubishi.
No wonder they got problems. They're like, this guy.
So again, circling back to what caused it, these protests were widespread with hundreds of thousands of people rallying across Greece. And it was a general strike accompanied. Wait. I'm trying to find exactly. So I wanted to know if it's still going on today, because this started February 28th. So there's no direct evidence from the referenced articles that it's going on today, March 3rd. The major demonstrations and general strike were specifically tied to the anniversary date of the February 28th, 2025 incident, and most reports frame them as a one-day event, though some sources mention ongoing strikes and protests without specifying duration beyond Friday. Given the intensity of the February 28th events and the planned political actions, it is possible that smaller scale demonstrations are related activities could persist through today, but we still don't have any confirmations. The protests reflect deep-seated frustration with the Greek government, exacerbated by a history of mistrust stemming from the 2009 to 2018 debt crisis and perceived institutional failures. A report released on February 27th, 2025 by the Hellenic Air and Rail Safety Investigation Authority highlighted systemic issues like understaffing, poor traffic conditions, and human error as a cause of the crash, further fueling public outrage. The government's denial of wrongdoing and Prime Minister Mitsotakis' warnings against violence suggest ongoing tension that could lead to additional unrest in the near future, even if not necessarily today.
So this is a complete frustration by the people. And I actually did the math. It's 3% of the population decided to do this protest is completely over the failed infrastructure of the country.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's an understandably good reason to be protesting.
Right. And so it's mounting frustrations. We've got
Especially
a failed
if it's
economy.
gaslighting, like you said.
Yes.
Like if the
You're
media
going
is
to tell us
gaslighting.
no wrongdoing's
Exactly.
done,
Yeah.
but the agency that investigated this gave us a list of them.
Yep.
Nobody's going to be held accountable, and we're the assholes.
Right.
But my dad and my cousin were on that train, and I'm supposed to go back home.
Oh man, that's so frustrating.
It is. But again, it's not an isolated event. It's
Right.
akin to.
Well, you mentioned 2009. Like these frustrations have been going for over 15 years now. I mean, 15 years, and now I'm just surprised. Like you said, maybe it's the hubris of this country. You don't exactly see like European, I guess, protests to such a degree that we see ours, because we see them all the time and they're always peaceful. But
Always.
yeah, always. But you know, like 3% of the population. Imagine if did 3% of the population even do it during the Summer of Love?
Good point.
I mean, you
Probably
know,
not.
like that is a large chunk of the population.
3%.
We were at a
of
stadium.
350
We were at a
million.
stadium
Think
with
about that.
94,000 people. Multiply that by like 4, and you get how many people are protesting failed infrastructure in your country at one moment.
Well, and that's why we need to remember what the United States is, right? Like we are 50 little countries.
Right.
And even those little countries are still larger than a combination of many European countries. When you look at Greece and you see that Greece is 10 million people, and you, sir, are talking about 3%.
Yeah.
That 3% of our country is all of Greece.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And it's like you mentioned, it's like one state. Like it's the size of a state. Like I wonder how many people are in like Ohio, like Ohio's population, right?
Ohio's like
I think it's
10,
20 or 10.
11 million, 12 million. Like we've lost people consistently.
Good. Get out of here. We don't need you.
11. So yeah,
0.8.
imagine 320,000 Americans or Ohioans went to Columbus, just pissed. You know what I mean? Like when you kind of change the perspective, because like you said, we've always viewed it as like we're 50 individual states. It's kind of been like the gist of it here, you know. I guess that's why we don't necessarily care or like kind of highlight what's going on over there. But when you kind of like talk about it here, it's like, that's a ton of people.
Right.
I was in a stadium with 94,000 people the other day, all singing 21 Pilots. Imagine if we were all like mad. You know what I mean?
And again, that's why they'd much, much rather you be mad at the guy sitting next to you that has just a little bit more melatonin than you do, than you be mad at us. Because we take half your paycheck every 2 weeks, tell you what to do, tell you what you can't do, and we'll put you in a cage if you try to fight us on it. Don't get mad at us.
Have they done like
Did I tell you that guy likes gay sex? You should be mad at him. That's how our government works.
Can you point that way? Jesus.
It was the guy sitting between us. Doug, get out from under the desk.
I'm right over
like
here. I'm not over there.
Whatever their, I guess, would it still be considered a state of emergency? Have they even gotten to like that level?
Well, they had a state of emergency during their financial crisis.
So yeah, I would imagine like I would assume 3% of the population, if they're pissed off about the railroad incident, they're probably pretty pissed off about the financial crisis.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Oh, for sure. But, you know, before we fully exhaust the topic out, let me bring in the pickle gallery. So, Ricky, what are your thoughts on this Greek fiasco?
Isn't the same thing worldwide? Like people are just tired of government doing BS or like not taking accountability with like big corporations or themselves. Is this another part of the world just feeling the bullshit of their government not doing enough or not pointing out enough, like taking accountability pretty much? It's everywhere. It's Jamaica, US, Greece, it's everywhere. You know, Mexico, like it's everywhere. It's worldwide. It's a worldwide thing. I don't know what's going on with the world government right now, but they need to figure it. The world order needs to figure it out.
And they're like, quick, make a new virus. They're getting on to us. Silent, what do you make of this whole thing?
Yeah, just
There's
to piggyback
the
off
wreck,
of
Will.
Ricky, it's one of those things where people are just so fed up, and this is not going to be the first one in Europe, nor is it going to be the last one. I think
it's probably the beginning of a lot.
So this is, I think, the start of something huge. If this continues on for the next few days or weeks or whatever, and the thing is, this is people finally waking up and sending a message to the government, because clearly the government has been kind of asleep on the wheel, really, in the past 5 years in most of the world, as Ricky said. So I'm totally seeing this becoming a trend pretty much everywhere, especially on Europe, since it started in Greece.
Well, and so would you guys agree then? Like, you were making the mention, this is the beginning of a lot to come, but it's a beginning of a lot to come that is not directed at each other. So we can see very quickly why there's a heavy incentive in keeping the masses ignorant to the frustrated corners of the world, because the second we start coordinating each other, if I start also getting frustrated on February 28th, and Silence in Canada, and he gets frustrated on February 28th, and maybe that island of prisoners in Australia, we could convince a couple of those clowns to get frustrated on February 28th. Oh my goodness, do we have a global headache? So did I tell you need to be concerned about your pronouns?
Could you imagine the people at the table if like all of us got pissed off collectively on one day, just going like, Jesus Christ. Let's move on.
What do you mean?
like you mentioned, like we get like the whole world like involved, like
Yeah.
on one singular date to just be outraged, and then the people at like the one big table
Yeah.
just
Oh,
all
okay.
sitting there looking, going like, what do we say to him? What do we say to him now?
Dude, I got to be real with you. The day that happens, that's when the bombs start flying. Because that's what they got. That's the only thing they got. Is they're like, as soon as we start losing grip on this, nuke them.
It's like Dr. Evil with his button. And
That's what I was about to say.
Burn. Ding.
Yes.
That's what I say. Like shit's getting so crazy. They either about to just pull out an alien and put them on front page, or just a country's just like gonna bomb shit. Like something is gonna happen. It's like it's right around the corner.
The distraction
all
is
the,
coming. Mhm.
Yeah, all the crazy people that you've been hearing over the year, end of the world, end of this, like new world. It's actually people with common sense can actually see the tides are actually turning, and it's the unknown is scary.
I like Ricky's. He's like, the emergency ripcord is either an alien or bombs. And I'm picturing you bring up Dr. Doom with the button and they're sitting at the table. And I'm just picturing human mannequin in a box. And when that time comes, it's not a bomb. It's not an alien. They push that button and Kanye's just like,
Kanye.
Jews.
Oh God.
Just get Kanye
They need
out.
something. They need something to bring us all together, and not even as a country, individual countries, as a world. Now, the next big thing is the world, like bringing the world together. It's not just one isolated country. Like we're across borders, especially because of technology. We're way across borders and finding out other people's business that we don't have nothing to be finding out about, and it's gonna be bad. I just hope I ain't there and I can live
Ricky, you're
and
here.
be on the
Inside
show
or outside,
later.
You're here.
I ain't taking no planes for the next 2 years, so I'll be good.
Dude, I would immediately, next time Kanye's trending, I'll be like, sleeper agent.
That's it.
Everything was going smooth.
I want you to picture a human-sized Barbie box with a Kanye mannequin sitting in it, and just anytime clone, just anytime. Boop. Hey, we're losing grips here. They're catching on about COVID. Check out my new Yeezys Nazi symbol.
Like, just imagine Kanye's actually just on a beach, and then the mannequin just comes out and does something, and Kanye's too, like, cocky. He'd be like, no, I did that. I totally did that.
He takes credit for his mannequin every time.
Yeah.
Only I could be in 3 places at once. That's the life of Kanye. Chuck Norris.
I'm the greatest there ever is. Greatest lyricist of all time.
So, let's start closing it out. In regards to this story, it strikes a chord with me because I've sat aside seeing a struggling economy forever. Greece's economy has been a relative success in recent years, rebounding from the severe debt crisis of the 2010s. As of early 2025, it continues to outperform the Eurozone average, with a real GDP growth projected at around 2.1% for 2024, expected to hold steady through 2025, driven by domestic demand, because who doesn't like turning up in Mykonos, and EU Recovery Resilience Facility. Funds. Okay, so that's where your GDP is popping because we give the EU money who gave you money to stay alive and stop pulling the euro down just a little bit. But I think they did leave the euro dollar. I can't remember. Anyway, the RRF allocating Greece $36 billion. That's one hell of a GDP. We were, how'd you do this? Did you start selling cotton like the Americans did? What'd you do? We were given a check for $39 billion. You're turning it around, Sally. Oh, my God. I wouldn't know why any citizen would go to your streets with a cocktail.
Dude, it sounds like they got that check and immediately we're like 6-leg parlay. Bing, 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 bing.
Oh, shit. We lost it again. I need another check or I'm pulling the euro down again.
I need another check or this train might fall off its hinges.
So Politically, Greece is stable under this new leadership, but faces growing public frustration as seen in these recent protests, which could test Milostakalakalikas's resilience in economic pressure. Economically, the country is in recovery mode, leveraging the EU funds and tourism.
Leveraging $39 billion. We're on the up, baby.
Yet it grapples with high debt, inflation pressures, and living standard concerns. The interplay of these factors suggests a nation progressing, but still vulnerable to social and external shocks. For the latest developments, what we could tell you is that it's seeming that the pressure is only mounting. So with all that being said, let me bring in the pickle gallery here. Ricky, what are your rapping thoughts on this whole thing?
Get your shit together, man. Like, shit about to pop off. I don't know. It's not just Greece, though. Like, it's not just Greece. Like, it's everywhere. Lacking trust in government is worldwide. And get our shit together. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I was going to save this for the the last segment when we talk about Trump, but I don't want to force the square block through the circle hole. So speaking of
the Moss video here.
Yeah, there's a Moss video. No, so speaking of just wake in the water throughout Europe, here is from today a protest in the UK, which has its own political context if you're familiar with the global arena currently. But here is a protest in the UK screaming for mega, because they're Trump fans too. MEGA, make England great again.
In an extraordinary display of transatlantic political solidarity, thousands of British supporters gathered in central London to celebrate what they believe to be Donald Trump's electoral success. The gathering, which drew participants from across the United Kingdom, transformed the capital streets into a sea of red caps and American flags, intermingled with Union Jacks. The demonstration, which began in the early hours of the morning, saw supporters converging on central London, many wearing the iconic Make America Great Again merchandise and carrying banners expressing support for the US president.
Our message to Donald Trump in the United States and every American who's watching this. Your election in November is far bigger than your country, okay? Donald Trump is needed in this world to bring back peace.
Cheerio.
Dude, you know they're UK people. They probably have the best chants. Like at the soccer games, man. They're probably so creative.
Probably.
Honestly, like I would love to see video. Like they'd be so creative, like on the spot. Oh my god.
So Silent, what are your rapping thoughts? Let's close this thing out.
Yeah, the Greek government really needs to get it together. Otherwise, this is not going to end well for them. And they know this. And that's why I think they've already promised that they're going to start to invest in the infrastructure, specifically the trains, too, like immediately. Like that's what the prime minister was saying. And I think, you know, the announcement is great, but let's see some action, right? Let's see some shovels hit the ground. Let's see some infrastructure being upgraded. Let's see some jobs created. Let's see some investments actually being made in infrastructure, because a lot of these governments, they just talk the talk, but then they never walk it, right? They never do anything. They just say they're going to build things, and then they say, oh, no, we did a study and it's not feasible. Or like they'll come up with some other, you know, million reasons not to go ahead and upgrade infrastructure. Because I think the reality of it is a big chunk of the world needs to upgrade its infrastructure, because a lot of it was built post-World War II, especially in Europe, and it hasn't been upgraded since. So this is definitely going to be very troublesome for the Greek government if they don't move quickly. And as I said before, if this protest goes on for a while and the government still doesn't move, I could totally see this spreading to the rest of Europe. And as Ricky said, if not the whole world eventually.
Fantastic point. I think Silent closing it out here with the strongest point, which is a comment that I flirt with every time we talk about Europe. Like, you travel there to get a flavor of the past But folks, you're being left in the past.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the future. You are in the past. And if you want to know what the past felt like, go to any of them. Go to any of them. And that can be said by somebody that's experienced it. Go there, go to Italy, go to Spain, go to England, pick it. You're going to go, oh my God, this is in the past. It's beautiful. It's fun. Oh my goodness. Don't have cancer or need a heart surgery there. That would be a problem. Don't need water. That would be a problem. So it's one of those, silent is delicately sounding the alarm to probably the biggest problem they have, which is everything needs energy. And while you are a pain in the ass that I need to get this weird converter so I can use your plug, you don't even have the energy to give me. You have to have Egypt build a super wire through your ocean because they've got an excess. The desert camel people with nothing but a rock, a giant triangle, has more energy than you. So much they're like, we can piss it away. You need some? I'll put $1 billion into a cord, a giant extension cord, so you can get some. That's how far in the past you are. So here's the problem. Getting from the 1800s to 2025, fiscally, to do it safely, takes about 225 years. And you're going to have to try to do that in a decade or less. And it's going to financially and physically cripple you. And then they get to sit here and see, okay, here's my little side diatribe. Any person that has an opinion about the Paris Accord, the climate accord, I know never read the Paris Climate Accord. Because if you read it, you would say, and I quote, it's the worst trade deal of all trade deals. Why? Because it would cost us a quadrillion, infinite money. I don't even have a number for you. Close your eyes, picture a number, bigger. That whatever you put, infinity, bigger. Why? Because this contract said, out of the 185 countries that exist, about 160 of them are willing to commit to get to energy neutral by 2050. And the side clause is, if we can't get there by 2050, America will foot the bill to get us there. And finally, the business guy walked in. He goes, the what? We need to get the fuck out of here before 2050. That's the fact. And we did. Oh, but then your dumbass team wins and makes us buy back in for double infinity. Dumbass. So what I want to just close my point out with is, you have a mentality bred amongst these people of, I don't have to get there. You'll get me there. So I don't need to get infrastructure in here, because at the point at which it cripples me or financially just destroys us, Big Daddy will buy us out, and I still get to call myself my own sovereign state. I'm not America, but America's going to foot the bill every time. Guess what? Reality's a knocking, and the Brits see it. The Greeks with cocktails see it, and here's the beauty of these people. You're seeing the nature of these people. You're seeing a populace of people threaded throughout any different type of community, especially in Europe. These are the folks that I don't want somebody to pick up my mess for me. These are the patriots of your country that want it to be theirs. It's their nation, and they want to be the changing factor that makes it what it is. They don't want to have to sit back and wait for Big Daddy to come in here, because guess what? Whether it's us, China, Russia, India, whoever Big Daddy is that comes in and saves you this time, they're the ones wearing the pants. And we've now learned through past experience that we either need to make this ourselves, or we will be at the behest of whoever Daddy is in that scenario. So kudos to the Greeks. Cheers to anybody that's taking on this endeavor that isn't doing it just for chaos's sake, like we see here in America. And hopefully this creates a narrative, a dialogue, a perspective where we start not only evaluating our neighbors and their experiences and maybe ways we can assist them, but it should provoke you to kind of put yourself in their shoes and evaluate it in your own respect. Look at your sandbox. Look at its rules and the walls enclosing around you. Do you need to have your voice heard? Will, what are your wrapping thoughts?
Lock in. I mean, like for years now, we've just been kind of seeing this happen over in the UK. I haven't seen much about Greece, but especially in the UK, it's funny enough. It just reminds me of Trump last week. It was like a week or two ago. Someone asked him, like, "Oh, what do you think of like Germany's election coming up?" And he's just like, "Whose?" And he's like, "Germany's." Like, good for them. We have our own problems. So for me, it's like, yeah, like I could respect, European citizens who want to kind of have that approach to their own state's problems, because it's like it's like you brought up. It's either us, India, Russia, or China. Do you think the other three are going to be very nice when they have to foot the bill? We're very nice when we foot the bill. We let you stay you still.
Right.
Like, I don't think two of them are definitely going to not be.
Ask Taiwan.
Nice. Yeah. So, I guess lock in. But again, I don't care. It's them, not me.
Yeah.
I can only care so much.
Doug, rapid thoughts.
We'll just mention that we'd let them
What's
stay
up,
their
Leaf?
own country. We would, because unlike China, who has that like Belt Road initiative where like if you don't pay them back, they pretty much own everything there until you pay them back. Like China has got these countries wrapped around their finger, and here we are just going to give out a bunch of money. But I want to circle back. Silent said
David is non-existent.
David's not here. Silent mentioned that it's like, oh, their infrastructure was all probably built after World War II. It was. And guess who flipped that build? We flipped the bill. Like the Truman Doctrine and all that, as long as you were willing to fight against communism, we threw all the money you needed to you.
Hey, speaking of footing the bill, Will just read me a hot headline, fresh off the press, right now. The current U.S. administration has announced that they are halting all military funding and assistance to Ukraine effective immediately. This is the find out portion. The sweater boy wanted to fuck around. This is that find out portion, and I do that with a shit eating grin, because I lose half a paycheck to a criminal industry, a mafia boss. And if that's going to be the case, I'm allowed to feel good a couple of times when the mafia boss flexes that big fucking muscle I paid for. So, 5 big booms. I have the luxury. I'm going to leave this, maybe play some Fortnite. I can pick up Taco Bell on the way home. There is freedom here, and it tastes sweet. It tastes
like we're not footing the bill.
Fiery. Yeah, exactly. So it's nice not footing the bill. Now, don't worry. In 3 more years, we're going to buy back into the Paris Climate Accord at triple the cost now, but at least we get to feel good for a little bit. So let's transition totally away from politics into something totally life-changing. Our reality is going to shift entirely. Kicking it off here, our next topic is how Microsoft has shocked the world after they have announced they have created an entirely new state of matter. That's right. You heard that right. Microsoft has created an entire new state of matter. So it's not a solid or a liquid or a gas. It's a phase of matter that only exists at the quantum level called the topological state. So what the hell is a tech company doing making scientific breakthroughs? One very important reason. Quantum computing, because yes, while we're currently talking about AI and everything else around it, there's another less spoken about pursuit that would drastically change the world as we know it. And after Microsoft's quantum chip breakthrough, we'll get into it here now, and it now seems more possible than ever before. Let me explain. Remember that scene from Endgame when Tony Stark asked Jarvis to run a bunch of different simulations to see if his models would work for time travel? Well, essentially, that's the capability of quantum computers. If scientists wanted to create, let's say, like a new material that self-heals so that buildings would just fix themselves, or clothes that would stitch themselves, or clothes that rip would just stitch themselves back together, well, they would have to trial and error their way through these discoveries. They'd mix a bunch of chemicals, test their properties, and hope to find something useful. But that takes years. However, kind of like Jarvis was able to do in regards to time travel, quantum computers could step in and simulate a bunch of different materials at the atomic level with extreme accuracy, predicting their properties before they even exist. Essentially, they could exponentially speed up that trial and error phase, and that level of problem solving could tackle so many issues we face today. You could cure cancer. Sure. Climate change? Why not nuclear fusion for potentially limitless energy? Sure. But where the hell does Microsoft come into all of this? Well, they just said that the chip that they created, the Murano 1, has the potential to hold more computational power than the combined computational power that exists on the planet. And it fits in the palm of your hand. Yeah, they were capable of achieving this. And it's because of this new state of matter that we mentioned earlier, the topological state, this wild new phenomenon that would be able to take Myron particles hiding quantum information from environmental noise. And I know this means nothing to you, but think of it as a new state of matter. If normal states of matter are like ink on paper, where a small mistake like smudging it with your hand ruins everything, a topological state is like a tattoo, where even if the skin stretches or moves, the design stays intact. More simply put, the state of matter is more resistant to errors. And this stability could help Microsoft solve the biggest problem we face. Quantum computers, which is quantum computing, which is error correction. And while this genuine breakthrough, we're not quite there yet. It's more of a we make the engine moment rather than we just made the entire car and you're ready to go. They would need around 1 million qubits that start solving those real world problems at scale. And currently, they've created about 8. But it's still damn impressive. And this is the beginning of something that's going to evolve into the rest of our future. So before I go into any more of the details, I want to ask the Pickle Gallery if they've got anything. What do you guys think of this?
Sound like some smart ass shit, bruv. Like, when she said quantum, I was like, yo, that sounds like some adventure shit. You know what I mean? Everybody like teleport in time. What's going on here? But like, so you're telling me this chip, all right, say in the future, I have it in my computer, it's gonna like fix itself before it breaks? Like, what are you telling me? Because I'm too stupid to understand right now. Like,
so again, this is the ignoramus's perspective, outsiders looking in. But based on what I understood, first off, the theory of quantum computing is totally different than what this chip is in reality. Like, what they're selling it as is different than what we theoretically have understood as quantum computing. Now, we've been sold on we're very close to quantum computing, but what it theoretically is, again, that is not what this is. Quantum computing is supposed to be a computer that can access the intellectual property and information of all quantum realms. And so, again, why it's so much more fantastical than like and theoretical than it is reality, because the odds of being first, you need to be able to travel into other dimensions before you're able to pull information and computing from other dimensions. But we classify this or regard this as a step towards or as quantum computing because this is the closest thing to that. Now, what is this quantum computer able to accomplish different than Doctor Strange's ability to run all the different scenarios through all the different dimensions. This is a computer chip that can simulate all atomic levels. Now, the narrative that I just gave is different than the scientific breakdown that I read. So this was the explanation given by Microsoft. But when you go and read how it works, what this chip is supposed to try to do, or what it apparently does, is it's able to recreate all environmental scenarios in a computer with pinpoint accuracy. So if you wanted to see how long it took this iPhone to rust or perfect, this one resonates with a fatty like me. We all saw Super Size Me, and we all saw that a McDonald's cheeseburger doesn't decompose. It's just literally 2 years later is just a puck. Well, let's say we wanted to see how long it took for that to truly turn into powder. Like, you know how they say this would take 1,000 years to rust. Well, we're really just guesstimating. Whereas a quantum computer, in the aspect of the atomic level that this chip would be able to present us, we would actually be able to tell you with pinpoint accuracy, because the computer is recreating at an atomic level that exact scenario within it. It's almost, the way I'm picturing it is like a digital biome within a computer. They are able to atomically recreate any of these scenarios, and that would allow them to develop things that aren't within our elemental spectrum. Like, if it's not on the table of elements, this is where you start creating new elements, is within a biosphere that can simulate all of these at an instant.
So it's like Bill Gates getting in his bag. Like, he's like, oh, we need to find out when this iceberg is going to actually melt and
Bingo.
flood New York and type shit. Like, okay.
Totally.
Overstand.
Totally.
All right.
And again, that's it too. So like the Microsoft ad suggests, you want to run scenarios computing fixes for climate change, and you may be able to run every potential way to create fusion energy. And we've laughed about having a fusion plant the size of a AA battery. But with this type of technology, we'd be able to run the the scientific method towards this pursuit at a speed and capacity unlike any human has ever been able to before, to where what takes us 100 years we can accomplish by the clip of a button. And so now the scientific evolution of what we're able to create is infinite. So Silent,
we're about to all die.
Oh yeah. Wait, let me run all the scenarios. Ricky is right. This is the there's only one of the a million that we don't die, and this isn't that one. So sit back, have a bourbon, laugh with the Rethink Tank, because it's all over. Silent, what do you make of this whole thing?
I think Microsoft has so much power already. Obviously, they're a multi-trillion-dollar company. They've been there for like almost a decade now, and in that like top 5 position. This just sort of skyrocketed them to number 1, I would say. And the possibilities are endless. They really are, because if you think about the use cases for something like this, and you literally can use this kind of technology for almost anything, and to simulate like things at an atomic level this is like a breakthrough that gets written in history books. Like, this is how huge this is. This is like when email was invented, or when the internet became mainstream and stopped being used only by the military. Like, this is that kind of moment. Now, the only way I see Microsoft fumbling this is if they close source it and don't open source it. Because I think something like this really needs to be open sourced and needs to be accessed by as many people as possible so that they can build a use case for it and applications for it and things for it that eventually just a normal person can get access to. Now, knowing that Microsoft is the biggest investor in OpenAI, I can totally see that happening. But who knows what Microsoft is really thinking about doing with this kind of technology? I guess only time will tell, right?
Right. I was trying to find it while you were talking here, and I wasn't able to. I just recently saw a like graphic, and my heart told me to have it ready for today, and I should have. But it shows how if you invested $100 at the beginning of Microsoft and $100 at the beginning of Apple, where it ended, and if you would have put in $100, you would have gotten back like 2.5 million for Apple.
Yeah.
If you put $100 to Microsoft, it was like 220 million. Like we look at them as direct competitors. We forget, and that's why the graph was so useful. You see, for like 20 years, Apple doesn't even come on the map.
Oh yeah,
and Microsoft's just growing.
Always been.
And you're looking at that like Xbox is a drop in the bucket.
I think you see that the most when you.
And that's a drop in the bucket. Look at Sony. Sony's like, we've got TVs and the PlayStation. Microsoft's like, oh yeah, we do that in our free time. That's some shit we do.
Yeah, we made one too.
And Americans won't give it up. What were you gonna say?
You especially see Microsoft's dominance when you leave North America. Because
Really?
us here in North America, we're very like with our Apple, right? We think that everything's Apple, but in reality, all the behind the scenes stuff is not Apple in North America, which is Microsoft has such a tight grip on that. And then when you go outside of North America, like most people do not have iPhones.
I want to ask you about this. Why?
Don't y'all
Go ahead.
Do y'all remember the virus that happened to Microsoft and shut down the planes? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
Microsoft essentially has its own global infrastructure at this point.
Which again, that's where I was going to start fishing. It's like Microsoft has its own infrastructure. How much of that is Microsoft Office? Like you have a monopoly on the generic use of a computer. Like the generic basic use of all humans' experience with a computer, you have a monopoly on. And I have such an insane problem with like Apple. I guess I don't understand the copyright lines enough, but to me, it's like gut-wrenchingly disgusting. Apple doesn't have a direct competitor with Microsoft. Like you have to pay extra to get Apple's version of Excel, and it's just Microsoft.
It's just Microsoft.
It is Microsoft, but Apple styled. It's got bubbles. The X is a bubble instead of a button. It's like, but it's still Microsoft. You just made it look Apple-esque.
That's what I mean, man. That's like the crazy infrastructure of Microsoft.
How are they allowed to have that monopoly? What happened to competition?
It's simply they did it first. They patented it. It's their product. They own it.
But okay.
So when you again, when you look at like the $100 and you're like, oh, and it's just like this. It's like that's what it is. It's their patented technology. It's their infrastructure that they're building. Like you mentioned, Sony, they got a PlayStation. Microsoft's like, yeah, we did that for fun too, and it's like better,
right?
And it's
but why is there competition there? And here's what I'm going to answer my own question. What I believe it probably is to create that software, like you said, exponential growth. It just keeps compounding on itself. To create the software sophistication that Microsoft is currently experiencing, it probably is so expensive. Because I would say you would probably be able to compete with them if you recreated the same thing with just a different user face. Yeah. Like there's 10 ways to edit a video, and they're all able to edit a video, but they're also somewhat different. So to me, it's you don't have a competitor, but I also and my question is, why hasn't somebody made this something that accomplishes the same thing? I can write my paper in it, or I can create a data set like Excel, but it's just styled. The interface is different. So that way it's a tool similar to yours, but it's not the same product. Mm-hmm. And I believe the reason we're not seeing that is there's so much Microsoft can do. Like, I'm sure, look at Apple. Apple has notes. You could type, but to be able to create outlines and data sets and all of these other functions that just continue to exponentially bury the last version of itself. To get to that height where you're competing, it'll cost quadrillions.
Yeah.
So now you're just stuck at being notes.
And you're just competing just to get the Microsoft's level. And they're constantly growing.
Right.
You know.
But to me, it's, you know, how do you compete with someone that's making something like this? You know, like when
buy up a lot of farmland.
I mean, it's crazy to think that this is the future, and it's microscopic, and it can do the entire world's computing in the blink of a second. And again, Big Daddy Monopoly, they're the ones holding the keys.
Yeah. No one's stopping it.
Are you familiar with the case that the antitrust case in the early 2000s and late 90s that the U.S. government did against Microsoft? I'm not sure if you remember that.
No, tell me.
So essentially, the U.S. government tried to break up Microsoft in the late 90s, early 2000s, but they won the first case. So Microsoft did have to be broken up, but then Microsoft appealed and they settled and they won. And I think
they wanted them to like kind of diverge their like because they owned all of the Microsoft Office tools. Like there was no competitor to Excel out there, you know. So like they had such monopoly.
Yeah,
and also the web browser too, and other various.
Yeah, Internet Explorer was the browser.
Yeah. Microsoft software. But I think that was the beginning of where Microsoft was like, okay, well, we're gonna appeal this, we're gonna adjust, we're gonna pivot, and then we're gonna take over the world, and they did.
Yeah.
So, like, to answer your question, like that was the beginning of the end of like any other competition that could have actually competed with Microsoft. Because I think if the U.S. government held their win and actually broken up Microsoft in the early 2000s, late 90s, it would have been a completely different Microsoft than it is now.
Boy, would it? But let me ask you this: why did we experience, like, again, the market will dictate the victor? And so Internet Explorer had the market edge. Like you were literally the Internet Explorer on all the first computers. You were really the only thing we could use. Google, Google Chrome, Firefox, all these different ones come about, literally doing the same thing, accomplishing the same thing, providing the same tool to the market, but through a different interface. So why am I look at nobody has Internet Explorer. So why was that able to be achieved? The free market was able to be victorious in this scenario, but nobody is competing in the Microsoft Office space. There's a strict monopoly. What do you think? Why?
I think it's a combination of many different things. I'll try not to get too technical with the why Internet Explorer got left in the dust, but essentially it's HTML5 protocol that Chrome switched to and Firefox switched to, but Internet Explorer never switched to.
Yeah, they instead came out with the Edge later on.
Exactly. It wasn't until they killed Internet Explorer and then Microsoft Edge until they added the HTML5 protocol. Essentially, just think of it as software that loads websites faster and more efficient. And Microsoft just never plugged that into Internet Explorer for like almost a decade. And that's why they got left in the dust in the web browser case. Now, as for like a true free or open source competition to Excel or Office or any of the Microsoft suite, I think the closest one is Google, right? Like the Google Sheets, Google Slides.
Right.
I think that's the closest free one. But other than that, like nothing else even comes close. And it really just boils down to convenience, a combination of like convenience, a combination of what you're taught in school as well too, and just the ease of use. Because at the end of the day, like a huge reason why iPhones are beloved by everybody, it's because they're so easy to use, right? And I think that's the thing with Microsoft's Office suite is it integrates with computers so easily. and you don't really have much of format breakage when you transfer files to other operating systems, such as
Very
like
true.
when you open it on your Mac or when you open it like on a Linux computer or whatever. And I think that's why Microsoft still has the edge. Now, could I see someone coming in and, changing that? Maybe, potentially, but they would have to offer something that's like so much faster and so much better, just like how Chrome and Firefox offered the HTML5 protocol way before Internet Explorer did it. And then they ended up killing Internet Explorer in the end because they never even bothered to write it in the HTML5 protocol.
But again, like you said, it ended up killing Internet Explorer, and by then it was a drop in the bucket for Microsoft.
Well, so that's what I want to
Exactly.
ask Silent. That's my next question here. All right. One of the things you said that kind of triggered a thought in me is all these different, throughout the timeline, there's different competitors, there's different attempts at trying to dethrone the king, and we've played the whole timeline out to its fullest, at least to present, and they were the better product every step of the way. And the only product they weren't the better product on, they still ended up coming victorious, going a different route, right? They just went around it. Now they have Microsoft Edge and it's all over again.
Yeah.
So they really never even lost.
Mm.
So let me ask you this, because I want to keep it dumb and palatable. This is my I'm asking you a question in layman's terms. So the guy that created the game Monopoly created the game to prove to people that if you played capitalism out to its fullest, one person will own it all. So let me ask, and let's be real. Let's truly internalize whether we believe this or not. Do we believe that, I'm thinking this is the case. Are we at that point where we're finally towards the end of the game of Monopoly and the pieces are more polarized than we're happy to admit? And truly, we're pissed that Microsoft has all this money and power, but they are the winners. They won the game. They're the better product. They're the better company. They're the strongest company. They defeated the market. They defeated all competitors in all other fields. Therefore, we sit back and accept our king. They won.
Yeah, honestly, the thing is Microsoft has to keep innovating, right? Because the second Microsoft stops innovating, they're done. I'll give you a perfect example. Remember BlackBerry? Remember how on top of the world they were in the mid 2000s?
You're on
they were everywhere.
They were hot.
They were sizzling. They were in. Waterloo was literally on fire in Canada. That was like the last thing that we actually put deep effort in, and a combination of innovation and the government funding and them going public in the 90s. And it was like a rocket ship. It really was. But what happened to them? The key word here, as I said, they failed to innovate. Now, Microsoft can stay on top, and they will, by the way, for a long time, because you can see they're putting their chips right now in places that, as I said, that's placing them in history books. The big investment in OpenAI, right? For one, this now in quantum computing, Microsoft Azure, aka the back end of the entire infrastructure of most of the globe, the corporate services, the servers, all that stuff. If Microsoft continues to innovate in these sections, yeah, they're going to stay on top. No one's going to even come close to touching them. But the second they stop innovating, they will fall, and they will fall really fast. But who's going to take the throne after them? I don't know. I could see Apple obviously doing it. But at the same time, ever since Steve Jobs died, you can see how Apple hasn't taken much risk. No. Like the Apple Vision Pro, maybe. That's maybe their biggest risk in the last decade. But ever since, they kind of stopped innovating.
Totally.
Like the iPhone hasn't really changed that much since like the iPhone 6 or 7.
Well, and now they're getting pushed around by the EU too. Like the EU's forcing them to change their cords and change their messaging apps and all this. Now the EU's pushing them around.
But again, it's even worse than that. I don't know if you saw his conversation with Mark Zuckerberg. When Joe Rogan spoke with Mark Zuckerberg. One of the things they spoke about was Mark Zuckerberg was reflecting about how Apple has crippled their own growth, and much of it has to do with prioritizing profit over anything else.
Right.
And so like the example he used were the AirPods. He goes, there's like and again, I'm not using technical language. This is not my field. There's like a connector. There's like a program that connects that device to their phone, the Bluetooth, right? But there's something that like
Special chip.
It's a coding
Mhm.
and it's proprietary and only they allow access to that. And anything can connect Bluetooth to an iPhone, like for music, but the extra additives of like being able to pause, skip, all these other like accessories. He's like, we're trying to create these meta glasses, which again are the next evolution to human sciences, right? Glasses with cameras, with AI in it that talks to you, can answer your questions. It's doing all of this stuff. And he's like, and we're being slowed down because Apple won't tell us how to connect it cleanly to their phone so we can enhance all these other things that it could do. So even now, is this a step in evolution? Yes, but it's even more limited because we weren't able to have full access to your tool. Poor Ricky. Will's jumping in. I got to toss it in, but Ricky hasn't had a chance to pipe in. Ricky, what were you going to say?
I'm just saying, Microsoft have their hand in every bag. If you really think about it. Like the first real stationary computers, they just kept inventing and going on because in every government facility, they have contracts with the government. Like Microsoft is not going nowhere soon. The creator of Microsoft is the owner of one of the biggest farmland. So if they need to make more servers and more way to connect people and shit, they're not going nowhere. And then they just pop up with this chip out of nowhere. So think about what's the shit behind scenes where they're not telling us about. And Simon said it, the foundation stuff. You're not gonna go in a professional job and you're used to something and they just switch it on you. Like it's gonna take so much time and effort to like switch like little just Excel, cheat charts, everything. So they're a foundation in the United States pretty much right now. Like they're not a fab, they're not a trend. It's just literally a part of the corporation, like corporate people and regular civilian. Like Microsoft is everywhere, like nowhere.
You're right. It's everywhere.
Dude,
and
no
nowhere.
one can compete with Microsoft Excel. Like the only comparable thing is Google Sheets, and that can only do a fraction of what Excel can do. I use Excel every day for work. Greatest tool. Tried Sheets once because I'm like, it'd be nice if I didn't have to be a slave to Excel. You can't do crap in that thing, man.
Very limited because it's free open software, right? Like, and that's what I was saying earlier. If you want to compete with Microsoft, you have to bring like your A+ game, and you have to wait until they slip and stop innovating. Then you can compete with Microsoft. And even then you can compete with them, but guess what? They can probably catch up because they have so much money. They'll just pour money into this thing. And if this thing doesn't work, they'll pour it somewhere else and control something else.
Well, dude, I can't tell you how many times our company has been shut down because Microsoft pushes out an update, it breaks something, and we are all just dead in the water because we're a slave to it. We have no control. And so
true.
But Microsoft is also so big that within like 5 hours of this issue being found, they already have an update out there to fix it. So that's the upside. Like they are so big, but they're also so big that if something goes wrong, the whole world almost shuts down.
You guys remember Skype? Like Skype was eating Microsoft's lunch. They were, but then Microsoft bought Skype eventually, and now they're gonna shut down Skype in like May 5, I think, of this year. Skype's gonna be gone. It's gonna merge into Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Teams is a great tool too.
That's what I mean. Like,
wait, hold on, time out. Real talk. Skype's still alive?
Amazing, right?
I know.
I thought Zoom buried them.
Microsoft paid billions for Skype, by the way, too. Keep that in mind. They took such a big L, by the way, on Skype. But guess what? They're a $1 trillion company. It doesn't even
Next
matter.
thing you go,
They can take the L.
It was an L over here for a W over there. It's like
Exactly.
I saw a little
That's
bit of
what I
financial loss to own the market entirely. And now the real question is, how long until they buy Zoom?
I could totally see it. I
don't know, man. I think Zoom's almost too big.
You would hope. You would hope, but
like that would probably cause a whole monopoly argument again.
Yeah, they better.
If Microsoft owns every single digital talking tool out there, that'd be another monopoly suit.
Remember,
maybe they don't need to hold the whole thing, but just have a little percentage in there. You know what I mean?
I could
they don't
see
need
that
to hold
by
the whole
part
thing.
of it, but not the majority.
Hey, Wilbur, What are your
Remember,
thoughts?
they paid. Oh,
Wi-
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Will's been
Remember
waiting, so he can wait longer.
They paid $8.5 billion for Skype, by the way, and now all of that down the drain.
When was that?
Like almost 12 years ago.
8.5 billion.
Hold on, I'm gonna.
Yeah, wait, hold on. Let's do the math. So, Will, you talk. I'm gonna do the math.
Oh, what they said.
Oh my God, that's what you were itching to say.
No. I think much respect to all of them. And back to your original question, yeah, they want capitalism. They will own it all eventually. We're all fooling it. If the price is good enough for Apple, they're going to Microsoft. We keep acting like it won't. It will. You can't keep up with them. Bill Gates doesn't even really need to do much innovation anymore. It's the people in Microsoft that are doing it. Steve Jobs died, and it's like, your biggest thing's what? An iPhone and an AirPod? It's like Bill Gates is just buying up farmland, and everyone else in Microsoft is doing all this other stuff. And he's like, yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
They're going to own everything. And that's fine. That's fine. It's all going to get to that point. That was the point of capitalism.
Hold on. I love Will's point in that it's fine insofar as you're not playing the game at the end of the game.
Exactly.
So this is just our kids' problem. And right now, playing Monopoly in America is a grand old time. I'm going to close out of here around 9:30. We can have a little bit more bourbon, cut the edge off, get some Taco Bell, play some Xbox.
Yeah.
Corn for free. I mean, I let it burn.
Yeah.
It's over. It's the kids' problem, and hopefully by then they have mastered the Greek Molotov, and they can.
Hopefully, we've mastered space travel and we're off this earth.
Yeah, they can have Earth. We're gonna go try it again in Mars.
Yeah. In terms of all these like Apple and them, like 30 years, they'll be like, oh, Microsoft bad Apple. I remember they were all like, no, they're going to compete. They're going to no. Microsoft don't own it. Don't own it. It's a global corporation.
Well,
It's a
dude, you
global
say that.
infrastructure.
There was talk, if you remember when we were kids, you used to be able to buy multiple gaming systems. Like you didn't used to be you were an Xbox or you were a PlayStation. It was I had an Xbox One or an Xbox, an Xbox 360, a PlayStation 2 because it didn't cost so much.
Right.
Yeah, you used to have all. Then it became you had to choose one. And I remember back in the day, there was all this talk because Microsoft was bigger than Sony, kind of. Like PlayStation wasn't as big. Microsoft was Microsoft, already huge company. Remember everyone was talking, Microsoft should just buy Sony and the console wars. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point.
Here's my hot take. I really don't believe that what the PlayStation is selling is a better gaming experience. My opinion is I think the PlayStation's market edge is aesthetic. We do the same exact thing as Microsoft. There's not as much interplay in terms of accessories and connectability, but we are this sleek, cool device.
Yeah.
Our console is the Fonzie smoking a cig device, and that clunky Xbox might be a little bit better of a tech, but you're not going to be cool with those nerds.
Well,
And that's what I think the only thing PlayStation has is an aesthetic that is cooler than Microsoft.
Well, if you remember too, during the console wars, it was all about a fight over getting those exclusive games. Like
yeah.
Halo was only Xbox. PlayStation had, I can't remember what PlayStation had exclusively, but they
it was
did
the
have
stuffed
some.
animal character. What was that one? Small World or something?
Uncharted, Little Big Planet.
Uncharted,
That's a
Gran
little bit
Turismo.
There's a bunch
Yeah,
of
so
them.
like there was a whole fight over that exclusive content stuff too.
But again,
back
we're
then.
talking about Sony, and it's like, what else does Sony have besides TVs and video game consoles? We're
Movie
comparing-
theaters.
Okay,
like
that's great,
movies.
dog. We're talking about Microsoft, who's building a chip. That, you know, like
oh yeah. Well, Sony owns Spider-Man. Will.
All three of them. They don't own all three, but they could get all three.
they don't know. They owned them so badly, they were like, Marvel, fix it. So,
Marvel, please
that was a good
rescue
defense.
us.
That was a really good defense.
We own all of Doctor Strange's magical abilities. I own a cartoon character in perpetuity.
Yeah, and Microsoft's like, we ran all the calculations and in all of them, we buy your ass. So, like, that's what I'm
what'll
saying.
suck
Like,
is Microsoft's gonna plug in this chip and go, We will own the world approximately 2057. We're right around the corner.
And it's just for these other businesses. It's like to put in the resources to keep up with Microsoft. It's like you can't. You just can't. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how much you like Microsoft, that's just the way it is.
But your hope is to create something that's so groundbreaking or unique that Microsoft buys you, and then you don't give a crap.
Then you don't give a crap. All of a sudden
who cares about it?
You're set. You want capitalism.
That way, you could be comfortable on a beach owned by Microsoft.
Microsoft actually won capitalism. The way you win capitalism afterwards is if Microsoft just buys you.
Yeah,
that's how you then won capitalism.
That's how you live.
I'm telling you, if someday, is it more likely Apple buys Microsoft or Microsoft buys Apple?
Oh, we know. You said
that's what I mean.
Right.
It's like we all know the trend, and it's like, do they innovate fast enough? It's like, I don't even know how much hands-on Bill Gates is in terms of the innovation. Instant Steve Jobs ate one too many apples. That company did not start innovating.
Dude, you know what's funny, Will? Like, I honestly would have thought that back in the day, Apple would have maybe just kept going because that iPhone coming out changed the technological world, man. Having a computer that can also make calls, game changer.
The
so
iPhone
I thought they were on top of the world. I would have thought all those years ago.
But look at Silent's point. Silent nails it. How do you get the iPhone 16?
Right.
And that damn thing is the same thing as the iPhone 1 I got in 8th grade.
You want to know?
That is the same damn device.
Androids
and
are changing.
Dude, I'll never forget taking this thing and like showing it to a bus driver where it's like, I'm on the school bus and it's like, look it's a fake beer and it shows it. And it's like, we had never in our life we've never seen a device with geolocation. So not only does this thing have mapping and the ability to call, it's a whole computer, and I could fake turn on a lighter.
Yeah.
Guess what? My apps have not exceeded that at all. Like, can I be honest with you? I could definitely think of a day when I was, let's say, 17, and I'm like, how long until this bitch actually has a lighter? Like a real lighter? Like, how long until it's like, and then it's like, at the very least, you'd think we'd have like a case that could do that, right? A case that could do all these different things. No. We started with pocket computer, call your friends, geolocation, take pictures.
The pictures
2.5 decades later, what are you still doing? Well, get this. I can call with better voice, better pictures, a little bit more apps, but the Apple Store will
Well, technically, what you used to have to sit behind a computer or a laptop doing, you have that. You know,
portable.
that's
Yeah.
It's
use Microsoft Excel on it too. That's the thing. It's like Microsoft doesn't even care about phones. They don't care.
Yeah.
They had
tried.
their own phones. They tried.
bought
They did it.
Nokia.
They saw
Remember,
everyone
they
else
bought
doing it.
Nokia.
Everyone, while they were innovating their phones, Microsoft was like, "Oh, innovate all over the world."
No, they did one of these as the king on the top of the mountain normally does. You kick your feet up, you sit back, and you go, "All right, this looks hard. You guys fight out the best phone. I'm gonna put the program on all of them."
All right,
Yeah.
let me hang on. Let me just say, here's the best example of the biggest Microsoft fail: the Zune. Absolute fail of
And
a
even
product.
they were like, "Keep the iPod. You're gonna need us."
I didn't even remember what that was until
Yeah,
you said
right?
it.
You
Yeah,
remember
but
that
now,
thing?
now I do. But now
Dude,
I'm
please
like,
tell me you remember the ass clown on the bus that
Yeah.
was like, you were only it if you had an iPhone or an iPod, but
Zune was half the cost.
exactly. It was one of those like, well, I can listen to music. You're not in the club, kid.
like I said, Microsoft, like you said, they were the king. Like, we'll just put it on all of your stuff. They did it once. They're like, all right, everything else ours,
Yep.
and that's fine.
Nope.
And that's fine. Like, I
They
have
had
no
one
issue
fail.
with it. I really don't. Like, that's the point of capitalism. At some point, you're not beating something. And there's not many corporations in this world where I could think of and be like, "Hey, you're not beating that one."
Right.
I don't care what you are. You're not beating that one.
Okay.
Microsoft might be one of onlys where I'm like, yeah, nothing's going to beat Microsoft in its current state at any point. It'll continuously innovate. It'll continuously grow. And these other ones are going to be fighting about getting the technology to figure out how to get your AirPods to connect to your phone.
You're 1,000%.
That's all they're worrying
right.
about.
Yeah.
And so
And that's coming from Mark Zuckerberg because he's an idiot. We all know that. Man's not
Also,
smart.
remember they paid 4.5 billion euros for Nokia, and now Microsoft owns a lot of Nokia's patents that have to do with radio technology and 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, 7G, etc., etc., etc. So Microsoft also has their hand in that too. Keep in mind, even though they didn't do anything with the Nokia phones, and they failed miserably when they tried to put Windows on Nokia's. It didn't matter because Microsoft's so rich. It didn't even matter.
dude, all right, I'll never forget being at the establishment next door before it changed hands. You and I were sitting at the bar, and Disney bought Star Wars.
Yeah, I
I
remember
think
that.
about this moment all the time because it was one of those major steps where the conglomerate kind of took the step to being everything.
Yeah.
You went from being one of the head competitors to everything. And I look at Will and I go, how much is Disney worth? They got to be one of the richest entities in the world. And then we Googled it and we learned very quickly Disney ain't shit. They're dwarfed by the richest entities in the world. And up there amongst the top 10 was General Electric. So go figure, the entity that owns the electricity for the entire world is one of the richest entities. Amongst the other 10 were like 6 Chinese banks, 3 American banks, a Swiss bank, and like that. So it's banks are the richest entities in the world. So I bring up that little side narrative because something like Disney, once you start thinking about, oh my God, all the shit that they own and how much impact they have politically, socially, everything else, they got to be one of the richest entities. You look at, they're not. They're totally dwarfed. Yeah. So as Silent was talking there, I go and do a little internet poll here. I'm curious, how much is Disney currently worth? All right, Disney is worth 203.9, so $204 billion. That is a force to be reckoned with. That is the GDP of a third of all the countries combined.
Most countries.
What is Microsoft's value? 2.89 trillion.
Yeah,
Almost
like
3,
Apple's,
yeah.
like they're never competing. No one's ever competing with that.
Never.
Microsoft could go out and buy Disney right now, and it'd still be in the trillions.
Yeah, they could buy like 100 Disneys, literally 100 Disneys.
Whoa! How about this though? This is where market summary gets weird. As of today, Microsoft's worth 2.89 trillion, and what's weird is Apple's was 3.5 trillion. So in their own respect, but that's what the stock market is evaluating it at currently in terms of, social prestige and market share.
It's not just that. It's just like the use of, like, for instance, it's like everybody has a phone. It's like, look at how many billion people are in the world. They all have phones. They all have multiple phones and stuff like that. The thing Microsoft always has above everyone else is we do so many different things. We have so much infrastructure in terms of,
and they do it really well too. And it's so hard to compete with those things that they do, the other things, not just their main things either.
Like, for instance, it's like General Electric. It's like, yeah, it's just the electricity. It's like you look at Apple, it's phones, TVs, AirPods, music rights.
Let me change this to a different thing real quick, just because we're talking about all this. Cable companies, all right, your area, you usually only have one cable provider. They have monopoly. You know why, though? It's because they were usually the company that laid all the cable. So they have like the rights to your cable in your area. I don't get how that's legal, but it's the same thing there. Microsoft laid all the groundwork. They pretty much are just, you have to try and beat them in that. And that's kind of like the cable companies. They're like, we laid it, we own it, we've try and beat us now. And
it's like we mentioned Apple. It's like, notice Apple hasn't necessarily beat anything that Microsoft laid the foundation for. What they did is they had the iPhone, the iPod, and that's about it.
iPads too.
Yeah, but it's like if you look at like the genuine, like you don't go on any computer and you have like Apple Office. I don't have that at all. Every computer in the world has Microsoft Office.
Apple created the smartphone, the tablets, and like music devices. But now the music devices are a dead tool because our phones do it all now. But they came up with all those, and yet still Microsoft is beating them in a lot of other things, which is just crazy.
So we're circling the same drain, which is Microsoft is a conglomerate that has taken over, and we've really shied away from billionaire controlling entity or not. This alone is one of the coolest moments in human history. We are taking computing to such a new height that we're going to experience an exponential growth and an evolution in what we know to be reality that it'll be unrecognizable. Give it 2 decades at the growth we're at, and we will not be able to recognize the world we're in. So let's get to our wrapping thoughts. Ricky, what are your wrapping thoughts on this whole thing?
Don't put that chip in the AI. Don't put it close to AI.
Should we put it in the back of your head like Elon says?
Ooh. Nah. That's too much power. That's too much power. Yeah.
Silent, let me ask you, what are your wrapping thoughts?
Yeah, as I said, this is a great moment in history. Like this is going to be in the history books. Microsoft did a great thing. I really truly hope they open source this so that others can use it and create software for it and make it user accessible. But we'll see. Only time will tell.
I like that. I'm reluctant to acknowledge it for what it is, and this is a godlike moment for man, which is creating a computer system that reaches like again, if you were to be dropped off in the middle of 1700 BC Greece, these folks are going to look at you like you're a god. If you show them your iPhone, the iPhone you didn't make, or any, like, all of what we have right now is godlike to the people of the past. And what I can assure you is this technology is godlike to us of the present. And so what this is going to do, we really can't even comprehend, because it's so beyond our scope of understanding. And like Silent had indicated, if anything, look at all that we've conceded. They own it all. This is the game of capitalism, and they're currently winning it. And there really isn't any going back once the scale is tipped to such a high degree. However, that all being said, for the human experience, this is one of the coolest moments. This is a breakthrough that we could be nothing but excited for. And I'm really eager to see what this develops for us. I mean, let's close it. My thought on this. This is a computer program that is going to create a synthesized biosphere where they can instantaneously test every phase of the experimental system, the scientific method, and we will come to conclusions that will compound on themselves, that will bring us to newer conclusions, and all of the headaches of our modern reality are going to be something of the past. Now, the irony of being alive is when you conquer one hurdle, that just presents the 4 other hurdles that follow it you didn't even know existed. So the race doesn't end with this one, but it takes us to the next leg. And I'm very excited for that. So, Will, what are your wrapping thoughts on this?
The 360 was far superior than the PS3.
So, oh yeah, so facts, and that's why they win. Big Daddy wins as always. Doug, give us your wrapping thoughts.
So you mentioned putting the chip in us. I'm not sure our bodies would be able to produce enough power to run a chip like that. I think we're too dumb for a chip like that.
Doug, I think you could run a chip like that.
I got faith in you, Doug.
Hey, if I could, I would take it. I'd like to be as smart as a supercomputer.
But you don't mean that, Doug. When the moment approaches itself where we've got you in the medical garb and Daddy Elon is sitting there with the syringe going, "You're going down. You ready to see the stars? We'll put you to sleep." I'm going to go out on a hunch and say you're going to second guess it.
Doug would see the needle and be like, no.
I'd do it.
Nah, I'm out. I'm like this. No, he's going to see Elon walk in with the chainsaw. I'm out.
Alex, real quick, one last side topic here, though. We mentioned at the beginning of this, the states of matter, solid, liquid, gas. Wasn't plasma considered a state of matter when we were in school, too? I thought
so. Is this 4. That?
I know. This is now 5. So, like, we had the 3. Then it went to 4 in school at some point, and now we're at 5. So, shit's getting crazy.
Who's in control of the plasma matter?
I don't
right?
know.
Like, what is that being used for? NASA made it, and they were just like, nah, we're gonna sit on this one.
Microsoft bought it.
Microsoft.
They bought it, and they're figuring out what to do with it.
That's the modern age. All right, let's close this baby out with one last topic. Boy, man, Microsoft presented us quite a dense one.
That was a good one.
While the rethink tank can be quite a Trump hype train, I think we are finally going to tap into a topic that can antagonize a few of us to really, really bring some criticism. I'm going to be eager to get your thoughts, the listener, but also Pickle Gallery and those in the studio, because I know where I come out on this, but I hope I can be persuaded.
We're doing something else that's going to be very, very good. We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges.
How much?
Plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship, and wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people.
I like that.
And we think it's going to be extremely successful. Never been done before or anything like this, but it's something that we're going to be putting out over the next, would you say 2 weeks, Howard? Do you want to say a couple of words about it?
Sure.
President, are there
Wait a
any
minute, hold on.
requirements for that
Hang on a
gold
sec.
card? Do you have to invest a certain amount of money in this country in order to qualify for that gold card?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Go
the
ahead.
EB-5 program was really, you lend some money, but it was full of nonsense, make-believe, and fraud, and it was a way to get a green card that was low priced. So the president said, rather than having this sort of ridiculous EB-5 program, we're going to end the EB-5 program. We're going to replace it with the Trump Gold Card, which is really a green card gold. So they'll be able to pay $5 million to the U.S. government. They'll have to go through vetting, of course. We're going to make sure they're wonderful, world-class global citizens. They can come to America. The president can give them a green card, and they can
Look at his face.
invest in America, and we can use that money to reduce our deficit. Why do we give out lotteries of green cards? Why do we give out EB-5 for green cards? The President of the United States understands that the right answer is, why don't we eliminate the deficit of the United States of America instead?
The gold card, well, millions, but the gold card will bring in with it people that create jobs, very high-level people. I think companies will pay to get people in. For instance, you today graduate from the Wharton School of Finance or Harvard or Stanford or any college, and nobody knows if you can even go to work for a company. So Apple and all these companies that want to get people to be working for them will be able to buy a card, and for the people that are number one in their class at top schools, I see that as one of the things. But generally speaking, it'll be people with money and people that create jobs, and they won't have to pay any tax on income outside of the United States, which they're not paying right now. They're not citizens, but they'll have to pay if they create jobs in the United States. They'll pay full taxes like everybody else. So you're getting big taxpayers, big job producers, and we'll be able to sell maybe 1 million of these cards, maybe more than that. And if you add up the numbers, they're pretty good. As an example, 1 million cards would be worth $5 trillion. $5 trillion.
Wow.
And if you sell 10 million of the cards, that's a total of $50 trillion. Well, we have 35 trillion in debt. That'd be nice. So we'll see. But it could be great. Maybe it will be fantastic. We have it all worked out from the legal standpoint. It's totally legal to do. Hasn't been done before. It's been done in many different forms. We give them away. Why should we give them away? We shouldn't give them away. And I think it's something very exciting. I think it's potentially just something that we're all very excited about.
Ridiculous. I think $5 million for a card is ridiculous. 2, where does he come up with this shit?
Well, so here's my problem. He says if we do 10 million of these, First off, you guys I've bored you on the show before.
No, he said 10 billion. You said like billion.
No. He said 10 million would get you
billion.
50 trillion. So here's my problem. At 5 million a pop, if you let in 10 million, that gets you 50 trillion. Yeah. That number alone is provocative because I've bored the show a million times over. Go to YouTube and search immigration marble video, and it shows how, we've walked up. But what do you take away from that video? We take in 2 million people a year. Yeah. And that's our global humanitarian assistance, is we take 2 million people out. You're going to bring in 10 million? My guy, that's literally 5 times more than what we do. So even if you're like, no, you idiot, I didn't mean just this year. I mean, over the course of my tenure here, I got 4 years, big dog, and I'm going to do 1.2 each year or 2.2 each year. That gets me to my 10 million. That gets us 50 trillion off of our $100 trillion debt. I made a comment to my boss that loves rubbing my nose and being a Trump person. I made the comment to, did you realize, I learned this driving home, listening to Elon Musk talk about Doge. I learned that our interest on our deficit is so high. The interest is more than the entire defense budget. Over $1 trillion in interest it's more than our defense budget. Brother, what?
Brother nut. How much of that is Ukraine's? Sorry.
I believe the
0 as of an hour ago.
I also don't think that counts towards our defense budget either.
I don't
speaking of Ukraine, though, I should have brought it up the first time we were talking about it. I do want to show this clip from the prime minister or president of Poland. Either way, I love playing a clip when a Polak speaks facts.
Proszę Państwa, jest taki paradoks i ktoś słusznie zauważył, że zobaczcie, jak to brzmi. 500 milionów Europejczyków prosi 300 milionów Amerykanów, żeby oni ich obronili.
All right, for the people that are listening to the podcast and aren't watching it, because we do the audio version as well, he says let this sink in. 500 million Europeans are asking 300 million Americans to defend them against 140 million Russians. I want to repeat these words. 500 million Europeans are asking 300 million Americans to protect them from 140 million Russians.
I guess I'll give Trump credit. I mean, his mathed out there.
Well, but again, as Poland says, if you know how to count on yourself. Start relying on yourself.
The irony that this is coming from Poland too, considering the last 100 years of global history,
yes,
is pretty great.
So again, how much of it is theirs? A good, healthy chunk of it. But let's keep it focused on the gold card. The gold card. So Trump sells us on, well, this is how we get the best. And the thing that, okay.
You're going to get 2.2 million people a year to buy something $5 million.
Dude, there are a million rich ass people across the country that would like to skip the line and have dual citizenship or really residency. That's what the green cards and gold cards get you.
It's still $5 million. Like, I don't know, like just that amount. Like,
yeah.
to me, I'm
so
just
again,
like, that's crazy.
Let's get to the crux of it. How does he? He sells us on this, and man, I'd love for a businessman to present an opportunity for me to get excited for more financial opportunities in America. All about that. However, when your sales pitch is, well, this is the gold card, and the gold card is a green card plus what?
Yeah, plus what?
Plus what? Because what the plebes are all getting is just the green card. It's giving us the pay to play. I've got residency and I get to hang out.
You want to know what it is? It's probably like a membership to Mar-a-Lago's golf course.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it is. Like, that would be genius.
See, this guy's silly funny because he's never letting brown people, no matter how much money they have, walk into Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, they have his gold cup, which is, come on. It's a gold card. Really,
he doesn't
dude?
care how much money that Saudi prince has. You aren't looking at me while I'm doing my drive.
Dude, do you know how funny it'd be if like that was the bonus perk and then like you had like 3 Saudi princes like out on the course and he was like their 4th? Like he's just a random. And he's just like, look at those trees. We planted those trees. They were great trees. Another beautiful forest.
Yeah.
That would be, I hope that's what the plus is. It's probably not. It's probably makes him more privileged than me as an American
That's what I
citizen.
mean. So bringing it full circle to what it probably is, it is benefiting with some sort of privilege over what the rest of the plebes get. That's a problem. And so what? It's one thing. Listen, I love going to Universal Studios and getting a fast pass. I've worked hard enough to be blessed to be able to afford a pass that walks right past all you plebes as you wait for the Minion ride. I get to go first. That's its own cup of tea. But this is bigger than that. You're not just jumping the mummy ride. You are also, I don't know, evading some sort of tax. I want to know what the plus is. Actually, I don't give a shit what the plus is. It could be just a turn at Mar-a-Lago. It gets you a free dog on your turn. Still pissed.
I'll take the free dog.
We know, Doug. That's why we said it.
Doug. Oh, God, Doug. I hope that Christ you golf in Mar-a-Lago and Trump's like, yeah, you got to pay
We're out
for
of
that.
hot dogs.
You got to pay for
I want the one day he goes to Mar-a-Lago. Hey, listen, I know you only play golf for the hot dog. I could get you a steak.
Dude, he's going to get
I'm over here
take
for the
it.
tube
He's going to get
steaks.
to the turn. He's going to be like, oh, it's no dogs. It's just McDonald's. And he's like, I want out. I want out.
Are you kidding me? I'd take McDonald's at the turn.
So
I would eat McDonald's with President Trump. Anyone who says they wouldn't, lying.
Doug, you look like you eat McDonald's at your desk. We know you'd eat it if Trump offered it.
Damn right. Hey, he eats it. He's president of the United States and he eats it all the time. So I must
and
be
look
doing
at
something.
him. Look at him. Do
I
you
must
see
be
what he's
doing
pulling?
something
His
right.
wife's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm doing something right then.
There we go. So who is this bringing? He says it's bringing big taxpayers and wealthy, high-functioning, high-level people. It'll create jobs. And, you know, one of the thoughts that it triggered within Will or within Doug is that, you know, companies would pay to have their employees have the potential ability to come here.
Yeah.
That also causes some issues for me. I mean, when I start seeing how all the big ticket companies are willing to support policies that bring in immigrants just so they could circumvent democracy, how do I know Microsoft isn't going to sit here and use just a couple of their trillions to buy the next election? I guess they can't vote. They're just here causing a ruckus in New York.
I don't know. It's such a, again, part of the reason I like him is he's not afraid to propose these ideas. That at least the conversation is to be had. But then in the video, he's like, yeah, in like the next 2 weeks, we're going to start doing this. So I was like, this is happening. This is actually
let us talk about this. Can we think about it for a second?
No conversation. What's the plus, dude?
Yeah.
What's the plus, dude? So I don't know. Like
Real talk, was not able to get that for today's show. I want you to know I proactively, because I knew that was a hanging crux of my position. What is that?
Yeah.
If it's just a lollipop, we come out ahead. The lollipop's 3 cents. You gave us $5 million. Best trade deal of all trade deals. If we owe you foot massages for the next 4 years, I'm going to start looking at the contract. What's the plus?
you know, like again, I do agree with your point. Like these corporations, like I could easily see them being possibly swinging elections. We've seen it happen in the past.
Hold on. I reneged on what I said. They can't vote. So that was a dumb comment.
Okay.
They can't vote. They would just be really annoying in New York.
I mean, what isn't?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be a Meta Yankees fan. So for me, like, it's just like how quick in the video he was like, it's $5 million or it's $5 million. We're going to get $50 trillion. I was like, okay, once again, the money keeps going up. And then he's like, and in 2 weeks, you're going to be there. I was like, 2 weeks? St. Patty's Day weekend? We're just going to let these people buy all this stuff?
I'm going to do the gold card in 2 weeks. I'm also going to do the Epstein files in 1 day. How'd that go? Well,
you know, so, but again, it's how he always is. It's like he's always proposing these ideas. And I'm fine with proposing ideas and having discussions about them. Is when you say there's a plus and it's 2 weeks away. I was like, plus what? Plus what's happening in 2 weeks?
Oh, no. See, that comes out in the press conference dated the day after I signed that with my big Sharpie.
You'll see it.
I'll tell you what the plus is.
So,
the plus
I mean,
is.
I don't know. Like, I guess I just, at worst, I have mixed feelings about this. If I would have absolutely negative feelings, though, if they were like registered voters immediately. I'd be like, that is way too much. That is way too much, considering we just voted to stop that.
Right.
So, I mean, the fact he called it the gold card, though, is still like
that's the most Trump thing
I
ever.
know.
Thank God it wasn't the Trump card.
What's the plus? They get a gold bidet.
Just so they could look at the other ones and be like, the greens.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what
I'm
I
gold.
mean.
But then there's the greens.
Dude, I will be honest, though, the first time I actually see one of those in person, like someone has one, I will be like, you're loaded.
Right?
Like, it's $5 million. Like,
you know,
like,
Trump's like, we actually, sir, you do realize that the green card is just a laminated piece of paper. The gold card needs to be like the metal Apple card, but gold.
Is that like something they keep in their wallet?
They will.
Yeah.
Once it's gold plated.
Yeah.
Bitch, they're gonna have it glued to their
Dude,
forehead.
It's gonna be like that Mewtwo thing you got in like your kids' meal. When
Oh,
you were
the
a
gold
kid.
Mewtwo that came in a giant Pokeball at Burger King.
No,
I remember that.
who's that brain dead rapper that had a gem like stitched into his
Lil
forehead?
Uzi.
Yeah, Uzi Vert.
Yeah.
Brain dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd put my gold. $5 million. That bitch is right here.
Elon Musk saw that chip in his head, said, "Not mine."
That one's a rock.
It's like Charlie Brown. I got a chip. I got a rock. So I mean, I don't know. Give it to the pickleback.
Yeah, I was about
gallery.
to say, flipping it to the pickle gallery, guys. What are you thinking of the whole deal?
So the green card is actually just an ID, standard ID. It's
There
not
you
any
go.
paper or nothing. It's just a regular ID. But I have more questions than comments. Like, can a corporation be like, "Yo, I got $5 million to get this Indian over here that's a great engineer"?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the 5 million himself. It's the corporation getting him over here. So what him as a regular worker, what incentive is he gonna get? Or is the corporation gonna get like a tax break because they brought like more questions than comments? I don't have no comment. I just have questions. Like,
so let's just say there's a financial benefit to them working domestically. Like, we know of like the Indian call centers. There's actually no financial incentive in developing that here in America because you can't pay them less than a penny an hour. So those are going to stay there. But if you had some Indian engineer that would benefit your office, like we need him in the office working with the architects, like it isn't something that is easily feasible through the digital landscape on the other side of this floating rock we call Earth. Well, then at that point, there's an incentive to get them in here for our personal productivity, especially if, let's say, some kid walking out of Harvard Tech School is looking for $700,000. I could satisfy some Indian kid with $60,000, pay the $5 million, and I've got him locked, and I sign him to a contract for perpetuity. Like, there's a non-compete clause. He can't go to another company, and he's stuck working for me. It's worth the $5 million because I would have only gotten, like, what is it, 5 years or 2 years, whatever. If I would have gotten 5 years out of the Harvard grad, whereas I've got this kid for life. For $5 million.
Usually, well, you can't have them for life. Usually, companies, when they bring you over, you have to work with them for like 5 years, and then you can like apply for your citizenship and eventually leave the company. But what
there are non-compete clauses in perpetuity. I could make sure that you could get a new job, but you'll never get the new job in computer software ever again.
Okay. But my question is like, what is that person? He's not getting no benefits. He's just coming over to work, which is America's great. It's a land of free. You know, I ain't trying to shit or saying I don't go down that rabbit hole. I'm just saying, like, as y'all been saying, I just want to know what are the pluses, like
the benefit to that person,
especially if it's not him financially coming out of his pocket getting it. What is, you know, I want to know what's the difference for the corporation and the individual.
so that's what I was starting to map out is if I got this new grad out of college and it cost me $500,000 annual salary, I am only getting 10 years out of him for $5 million. Whereas I could buy an Indian kid $60,000 a pop. I pay the $5 million up front and I own him for 20 years. If I even get 10 years out of him, I'm still, or let's say I get 11 years out of him. Now I'm ahead of what I would have gotten for if 5 years with the kid out of Harvard cost me $5 million, let's say, or let's say 10 years. Let's stick with that. 10 years at 500 grand a pop, that kid then cost me the 5 million. If I have an Indian kid for 60 grand a pop for 12 years, I've now made it ahead than if I had that other kid for 12 years, because I would have been $1 million further. I would have been at 6 million with that kid. Whereas now I'm at 5 million invested with the government, but really 5 million and like 250,000 goes to the Indian guy. The Indian guy's incentive is I can't get anywhere near this figure in India. And the living conditions, I'm now in America. Did you see the bikinis in Miami? They are not there in India. So I am living high off the hog in a pretty place, and I'm living rich compared to what I'm used to, but compared to where you're at, you're getting me for free. So it's a weird dynamic, but also, I don't know. To me, that just my instinct has my skin crawl. When companies are able to intervene in the immigration policies of our country, like they'll be high level. Ricky's got his finger on the pulse. Nothing's telling me he's high level. It's the corporation paying for this person's high level, and I'm just getting the guy.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does turn out to be high level.
You know, they did
So a
mention
Chinese company can start. A Chinese company can start and just start bringing like a bunch of their people over. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
You're right. You nailed it.
But yeah, I mean, like again, like they said in the video, they're gonna vet him, but it's like we've all heard that before, you know. So,
Sal, what do you think?
Okay, so this is essentially they mentioned this is the program to replace the EB-5 program. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that program. Is anybody familiar with it?
Probably not as much as you are.
Okay,
truthfully.
So the EB-5 program is very similar, except instead of paying 5 million, you pay 800,000 to $1 million, and there's certain conditions though to it. You have to invest in specific regions in the U.S., and you also have to open a company and create at least 10 jobs to Americans.
Oh,
so that was the EB-5 program. So I'm assuming this program is going to be similar, except now the threshold is obviously increased to 5 million, which is like basically 5x essentially from the 800,000 to $1 million. Here's some numbers for you guys. As of April 2020, April 23, 2020, there was 78,278 investors that applied to this. And 80% of them were from 4 countries: China, South Korea, Taiwan, and the UK. Huh. So essentially, it seems most of these people that have been using the EB-5 come from like already pretty developed places, you know, like Taiwan is in there, you know, educated, UK is in there. So like what Ricky said, I'm not sure exactly, other than obviously the 5x price tag, I'm not sure exactly how much more it's going to change, to this program, because the EB-5 program was great, by the way, and it is. And there's been many studies that have been done that, once the investors, inject the $1 million, it obviously stimulates the economy and they create 10 jobs to Americans. Like, it's a really good program. It really is. But here's where it becomes bad. And I think the secretary there that was talking right after Trump also kind of hinted at it a little bit. There was a lot of fraudulent activity by a lot of investors, in the sense where they invest the money and then they start to funnel a lot more other people to invest the money, and it was basically they would obtain the money through fraudulent schemes, but then they would kind of like wash the money, bring it from China. Specifically, it's China. Like let's
There
be
you go. Right.
let's be honest here. If you read the studies, you'll know who it is. I just didn't want to say it, but yeah, it's China. And a lot of people are coming in from China and basically becoming residents and getting a green cards through this EB-5 program. And that's why I think Trump wants to shut that program down and do the golden card, in a sense where he's just going to raise the bar. And I'm assuming he's probably going to raise the requirements to sort of pass certain security clearances, or maybe vet the money that comes in and where it's going to go. But like I said, the program itself has done more good than harm. Of course, there was abuse, but to make it 5 million, I don't know if he'll get 10 million people coming in, because
That's a fair point.
Like I said, at the price of 800,000 to $1 million, the US only had 78,000 people come in.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, and you know what's interesting? I want to get your thoughts on this. You make that point, and the thing that I'm left thinking about, you brought up how those visas are normally coming from like 5 predominant civilized communities or economies.
Yeah.
To get 10 million millionaires, like again, once you get 1 million, you're a millionaire. This isn't just a millionaire. This is a millionaire that has $5 million that they can compromise. So this is like an extra millionaire, somebody that's like beyond the 1%. And so you need 10 million of them, not just in where you're normally getting it, England, Taiwan, the countries you had listed. You now need to appeal to the other 190 countries that barely have a couple millionaires, let alone enough that are able to leave the economy and like replant themselves where you're at.
It's like Trump quietly just said, I want people from here.
Yeah. But even then, like Silent's bigger point is, even if it is directed at, I want to keep it, I want to raise the bar so it's only the best and it's only coming out of these locations. The truth is, those locations don't, Silent, am I wrong to kind of exclaim that it doesn't feel like England has, even what's a fifth of it? They don't have 2 million millionaires
they don't
like that they could afford to lose or would be willing to leave. It just doesn't say, at first on its surface, fantastical numbers. Sure, let's get 10 million of these people to do it and we're out of debt. But it's like, wait a second. Yeah, wait, where are you getting these 10 million folks? 10 million super millionaires. That sounds impractical.
It's like, truthfully, I know he like did the big sell, but it's like, realistically, he's probably hoping like there's like 200,000 a year that decide to do it.
Right.
So
you're probably right.
So some quick math. In 2020, from that report, the 78,000 people, that's like around $78 billion generated, which is tremendous, by the way. That's a lot of money. That's amazing, right? But another thing the report highlights here too is it says a large number of applicants have also come from India, Vietnam, Mexico, Brazil, and Nigeria. So very interesting. But as I said, and this is at the price of 800,000 to $1 million, right? 78,000 people applying and getting this visa. That's not a small number. Like, that's a lot of millionaires. That's almost 100,000 people who are millionaires who brought their capital and injected it right into the great American economy, right? Right in there, straight in there.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. It really is. Like 78 billion is nothing to sneeze at, But I fail to see where people will inject even more money.
Yeah.
Like if it's 78,000 people at $1 million, how much is it going to be at 5 million? Maybe half of that? Maybe a quarter? I don't know. Maybe 10,000 people?
Wow. Yeah, I'd say
maybe
a fifth.
Yeah, like I don't know. Maybe Trump clearly was not very clear with this. Clearly, he's just kind of like saying 2 weeks, guys. Oh yeah, 2 weeks, guys. Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We'll let you know in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and there's a plus.
I think he's just like he's planting the seed now. But I truly hope that he gives some sort of like tremendous incentive so that they can bring 5 million instead of the usual 1 million that they have to bring, you know? It's going to be very interesting to see for sure.
I think you've given us a huge landscape to evaluate this. The reality is we're being told it's going to create jobs. We're bringing in high-level people, big taxpayers, big taxpayers. And this is why I find value in the show, why these conversations are needed, because I don't want this to become such an echo chamber that it's portraying a reality where someone can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it hyper important. There's so many Trump topics in the last week that we could have talked about. And I found one of the more important pieces on why this was a chosen topic is because we need to be able, like, I'm not a MAGA nut. I'm not one of these people that fail to see a faulty policy. I don't see this being the win, especially if it's the answers in the numbers. Yeah. What they always say is follow the money. Silent did the math for you guys.
And the thing is like you like you mentioned, I don't necessarily see this as a loss either. I more view it as like, I don't see the point.
Far from a win is what I would say. Is I don't look at this as, hey, me and Will have bonded over like nonstop winning. Every day's another win. When I read this, I was like, now that's a big F up. Like to me, I was like, that's where you tripped. I mean, come on, 2 months, every day's a victory.
Yeah.
But I don't want to underplay. This wasn't just this is a big stumble in my opinion. You're belittling what it means to be a functioning member of this community when you add the plus. And then you hide the plus behind a Wizard of Oz veiled curtain. I don't even know what it is. And I'm supposed to get excited about it, but it's getting us $5 million. $5 million from who? Now you're asking too many questions. So before I get into my rapping thoughts, I want to toss it to the pickle gallery. Ricky, what are your rapping thoughts?
Just gonna sit and wait. Rapping thought is sit and wait and not speak out of ignorance.
It's a smart man.
I like
that.
Wait
Smart philosopher. Silent, what are your rapping thoughts?
As I said, the EB-5 program actually works. It actually injects a lot of money into the U.S. economy, as we quickly calculated there and did the math earlier. $78 billion is a lot of money. But at the same time, like I said, I don't see why you can't just keep this program. I mean, clearly it's working, right? Like, why change it? Yes, there's fraudulent use of it, which obviously needs to be vetted better and policed better. But at the same time, the positives are way more than the negatives. If we have 78,000 people, right, that have successfully injected money into the U.S. economy and have created the 10 jobs, then why not? Give them the green card. They deserve it. Honestly, at that point, they do. Because they're actually bringing a lot of value to the U.S. Now, at the same time, like I said, only time will tell. But I think Trump really needs to throw in like a very kind of maybe an expedited path to citizenship, or maybe some sort of tax breaks, or some sort of like, you do this, pay the $5 million, you don't pay income tax for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, something like that. I don't know. But there needs to be some sort of like big incentive so that these millionaires from other countries can bring that 5 million into the US. Because like I said, as of right now, the EB-5 program really just works completely fine, other than, of course, the fraud. So I guess only time will tell us what will happen. I think Trump kind of, as you said, Alex, he definitely misstepped. Like he didn't think this through. He kind of like didn't really calculate it that well and didn't really execute it. Or if he did, he just hasn't revealed to us the rest of the details that show that he actually did calculate this and that he actually did create an incentive for these people to bring in the 5 million instead of the 1 million. So
very strong wrapping thought, because one, as you present like us in the studio, dude. Yeah, I can't say the same about a baby today, but in a world where there's birthright citizenship, nobody in this room knows anything about that. And I went to law school and I literally chose taking immigration class as one of my 2 electives because it was so politically stimulating at the beginning of Trump's first term. And I wanted to be, within the know. And the only thing I walked out of there knowing is that this is the most complicated, stupid system you could imagine. Like it is what you thought was complicated. It's more than that. It is a totally messed up quagmire. And when somebody that's actually experienced it, right? Outsiders looking in, I didn't. So I really need to heavily weigh upon those that have wrestled with. I mean, look at Ricky. It's not a piece of paper. It's an ID. It's like, well, guess what, dude? I don't know. Like I've never touched one. So one, talk to the people that have experienced it. And so when Silent looks back at you and goes, this was a program that was working and was probably one of the better residency programs you had available. Mm-hmm. Why change it? Mm-hmm. So, okay, when Silent presents the question, why change it? You really start going, yeah, dude, why'd you do that? You needed the fun. Like, I know how your marketing works. Gulf of America. Like, I'm the Trump. I have the gold card. You've all heard of the wet back with a green card, but have you ever heard of the dry back with a gold card? Like, it's just, this is how the dude works. Mm-hmm. And I get it. He was seeing the surface level memes and tweets and social narratives before the actual implication. And so why change it? It really does make you scratch your head going, why didn't, if you wanted the Residency Plus, then why didn't you just add the gold card? Like, why'd you have to eliminate the EB5 and create this other sidetrack? And how different is that sidetrack from what the experienced, human goers tell you was the working aspect of our system? You just did away with it so you could yell gold card. Okay, that I'm not too excited about. The one piece that Silent brought up that I think we've had a long dialogue about this, circling this point, none of us truly attacked it head on. Brother, we're not even talking $1 million. We're not talking 100,000. $5 million is like jet money. Mm. And so when Silent goes, there's got to be a big incentive for $5 million. It's like, dude, we make the laughing joke that gets us off the track. It isn't a round of golf. Yeah. Like $5 million is incentivizing something. Yeah. Follow the money. It tells you it all. When you start seeing a $5 million cost tag, that person is getting something back worth $5 million. And just so you know, Residency isn't worth $5 million. We're giving that away to poor assholes that really don't give anything to our society. Mm-hmm. We, in fact, give them debit cards and residency and the ability to vote. That's how cheap and minimal the value to an American residency is. So if you're a quadrillionaire, you are Taiwan's Bill Gates. I am the Taiwanese Bill Gates. What is bringing you to America? It sure as shit isn't just the pass to enter. So is it a meeting in the Oval Office? Is it access to servers that, are classified information? Like, what is it? Because it's something worth $5 million, and I'm going to lay my final thought on the value to an American residency currently with a green card or however you want to access it. It surely isn't worth $5 million. It's barely worth 100,000. So where does that other 4.9 million in value come in? And why won't you let me get a peek behind the veil to see what it is and get an accurate evaluation of what you got conniving? I don't like this play. I don't like this policy. I think this is a failure of Trump's, and we need to be outwardly critical of it if we're going to be fair and honest. Rapid thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a misstep by him. I don't see where the benefits. The benefit would be we get rid of the deficit, and it's like I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and so Silent cracks the math. You go cut it in a fifth, and we're still barely even close to $1 trillion.
So yeah, I mean, I think he's done a good job so far. I think this is a miss. I think time will tell. I who knows? Maybe not many people are even going to do it. I really don't know. So, he knows how to market though.
Boy, does
I feel like I'll just give him that.
Doug, rapid thoughts.
I don't know. If someone wants to spend give our government $5 million to come here, I'm all for it, because that probably means they're a contributing member of society. At least they have a job, They make money, they spend their own money, not taking money from welfare and just putting that back in the economy. So I don't know. I don't see a huge downside to it personally.
See, I love you, Doug, because you've been American. You've been true blue American just too long. Because you think if they got money, they obviously got it fairly. And that's in our system where we have laws.
I care about at least they have it and they're not taking it from the government that can barely afford everything as it is.
Sure. I'm going to go on a limb and say the Venezuelan that has $5 million to exhaust did not get that as a clean-cut human. They were willing to step on a couple necks to get that gold card.
All hail the almighty dollar.
That's right. Hey, as we always say, follow the money. So again, guys, as we always do, we appreciate you joining us. The whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. So cheers to everybody. Leaf and the rest that jumped into the comments to join the dialogue. I want to thank the Pickle Gallery for joining me as always. Ricky from Just Another Day TV, tell the folks where they can find you.
Yo, Just Another Day TV, man, and everything. Tomorrow, 9:05, new video. Check me out. We outside.
That's right. Don't miss the new video. Silent, tell them where they can find you.
Kick.com/Silent Destroyer, live every single day.
And you got to tell them, find them elsewhere. Silent Destroyer 69. I don't think I've ever heard you say the 69 in your
Silent
closeout.
Destroyer 69 on YouTube. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. I'm posting every day on YouTube too. Silent Destroyer 69. Go subscribe.
Hey, I love it. I love it. So, guys, we appreciate you joining us each week. We go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m., except for today, because Will and I have professional commitments. Our job calls upon us. We got to go there. So we appreciate everybody that adjusted to join us on a Monday, but be sure to catch us each week live Tuesdays at 7 p.m. We go live on all the different platforms. And if you miss it, you can always catch the streaming of the episode. The audio versions get put out across all the places you get your podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever, wherever you're getting it, you can find it. But also you could just find, if you want to see our smiling, I got my teeth cleaned today, nice and white. If you're looking to see this shiz, you can just pop us on YouTube. But also, I'm glad I thought about that. YouTube is our warlord that just doesn't want to love us. I told Doug I was going to buy him a drink this weekend because he did so good on our reactions show. If you go to our, amongst our different channels, we have the Rethink Actions channel, and it's our reactions channel where we will just watch, interesting, funny, whatever, YouTube, internet clips. The theme this past week was Premier Soccer, Premier Football. Doug did great. This was one of my most proud edited videos. It honestly is so clean, so sharp. Big Daddy YouTube said no. So it's up on Rumble, but you don't want that. You could find it on our website. For this week, I've got it right there on the homepage. If you're trying to catch this last week's episode, which Doug did amazingly and has some pretty fun content, but even better soccer, football, don't miss it. Head over to our website. But like I said, we've got all these different shows, different channels. You can find it all in one central place, and it's at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. If we made you laugh, if we made you think, the best way you could do to support the show is like the episode, share it. We're fighting algorithms, but again, you don't want to miss us. So hit that notification bell and subscribe so you can catch us next week, because we do it each week. But otherwise, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us. Peace.